Hi, this is Ed Downs at Aberco Incorporated, manufacturer of Piemaster machines. This is the 9th tutorial in a series explaining the operation, maintenance, and safety of the SA-21 Piemaster. This video, short, to show you how to mount these molds onto the mold shafts here, and a concern or two that you got to make sure we get things correct. We talked about earlier, these molds, there's flat spots right here. You can move these molds back and forth. That is so when the filling comes out of the depositor, sometimes the knife will throw the filling a little bit this way. And you can adjust it so that it lands where you want it to land. The other thing is sometimes you want the filling to fall a little offset if it's a very dense filling, and then sometimes maybe take a spatula and spread it a little bit if you have to across the dough. So there's a few reasons you might want to position these a little differently. When you install them, you want to make sure they line up together, though, whether they're offset from the center of the hopper. You want them to line up so the crimped edge and the pocket line up. So there's 4 screws. These are 1¼ long. You always want to use those 1¼ long screws. If you use shorter screws, if you lose these and you use shorter ones, you'll end up tearing up the threads inside the mold, and you'll end up having to put a helicoil in there, and then probably eventually you'll have to replace the mold set because or tap it with bigger screws and start getting custom. So if you use 1¼ screws, you should be safe. When you put them on, they're held on with these straps, and I'll take one of them off here. You can see this. It's pretty simple. There's no rocket science behind this at all. The only thing that can happen when you put them on, you put them on upside down like this. The only thing that can happen is you can get them off. You can get them offset. If you screw one side down first too much, you can screw this side down, and it'll too far. And you get going too tight, and it lifts this side up, and then when you put this side in, it'll be cockeyed on the shaft. So you want to screw them down uniformly, kind of like you would tighten up the lug nuts on a car wheel. You want to kind of go back and forth a little at a time, so you make sure. See, I already got that cockeye where it bound up in demonstrating it. So go back and forth so it goes down evenly, and you don't have the problem that I've created. I demonstrate exactly what you don't want to do. So get them both started, make sure they're lined up, and then go back and forth until they're all the way down. And you can look across the strap right there and see that it's flush, that they're evenly spaced across it. And you want to snug these down so they don't move. Again, there's a lot of over tightening goes on with this machine for some reason. You want things not to move, but you don't want to tighten them so much that you're tearing up threads or getting it bound up so hard you can't get it apart. So once all the screws, the mounting screws, are snugged down nicely, you can roll the molds back together by hand. And you can see the alignment here. Where the molds meet, you want this in here to be to meet at the same place. You don't want them offset. That means that maybe a gear is slipped or something. If they don't align right, they should meet evenly. You can pick your starting point wherever you want for your pies. You can open them up a little bit. You can bring them in a little bit. That does change the size of the pie a little bit by doing that. The width across here, you can do that. Once you got them installed, you roll them together 90 degrees, and we talked. So there was a little glitch in the video there. Sorry, abruptly changed back here. We had rolled the molds to 90 degrees perpendicular, and then we're looking at this gap down here. Pretty simple little feeler gauge will be with your tool kit, 40 thousandths of an inch. You want to put it in there. There's a screw you loosen there to or a nut you loosen there to move that screw in and out to set the gap. And you want it to be anywhere between 40, 60 works. 40 is the optimum. That ensures that you have full spring pressure on the molds as they roll around. On the other side, inside the motor box, below the motor, it's a little tricky to get to. Once you figure it out, it's not a big deal. There's another identical swing arm. You got to set that as well. And then the spring here, that's the standard setting where you see it. You can move the anchor point down to the lower pin to get more spring tension. If you're having some trouble with pie sealing, you can try that. We can put a second spring down here, so you have two springs. That's a lot of spring tension. I only recall one customer in the last 17 years that we had to do that with. Usually at the most, just change this anchor point down to here, and you get a little more pressure on it. That string's pretty tight. You get plenty of pressure on the molds usually. So that's really about it. That's how you're set up. And of course, you set this cam to come around and hit that switch to close, to stop the cycle and stop the molds where you want them to stop. And other than that, that is about it for the mold setup. I believe that pretty much concludes all the mechanical operations and the pneumatic electrical stuff on this machine. We'll pick up with the control panel, the new control panel and the Raspberry 4 computer, and how to operate it and how it functions. And then that will conclude all the tutorials with a couple of tips and a few pointers that we'll give you in another video that might help you out in your processes. Thank you.